The morning sun filtered through floor-toozling windows of the Reed residence, casting warm shadows across polished hardwood floors. Daniela Reed stood in her kitchen, carefully arranging fresh peonies in a crystal vase. Everything in her world seemed to sparkle with perfection. The coffee maker hummed its familiar song, filling the air with rich, dark aroma. Outside, the Seattle skyline stretched endlessly, steel and glass towers reaching toward a cloudless sky. Today marked 5 years since she married Julian Reed. 5 years of building a life together, of dreams shared over morning coffee and late-night conversations. She had planned this anniversary breakfast with precision. Fresh pastries from their favorite bakery sat on the marble countertop, champagne chilled in an ice bucket. A small wrapped box containing vintage cufflinks rested beside Julian's empty plate. Daniela glanced at her reflection in the microwave door. Her auburn hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders. She wore a simple silk robe, the color of cream. At 32, she had built a thriving interior design business, transforming empty spaces into homes filled with warmth and character. Her life felt complete, almost too perfect, like a photograph staged for a magazine cover. The message that changed everything. Her phone buzzed on the granite countertop. Daniela smiled, expecting a sweet message from Julian, who was upstairs getting ready for work. Instead, her heart stopped. Unknown number. The preview made her blood run cold. Thought you should know the truth about your perfect marriage. Attached was a photograph. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. There, captured in painful clarity, was Julian, his arm wrapped around Cassidy Monroe. Not just her friend, but her business partner. The woman she trusted with her deepest fears and biggest dreams. They stood in what looked like a hotel corridor, their faces close, intimate in a way that spoke of familiarity and comfort. The timestamp showed 3 nights ago. The same night Julian claimed he was working late on a property deal across town. Daniela's knees felt weak. She gripped the counter's edge, forcing herself to breathe. More messages arrived in rapid succession, screenshots of text conversations filled with pet names and promises, receipts from restaurants she had never visited, hotel bookings under false names, 6 months' worth of evidence, methodically compiled and delivered to her doorstep like a poisonous gift. Choosing silence over chaos, the room seemed to tilt. Daniela closed her eyes, willing the world to steady itself. Her mind raced through memories, searching for clues she had missed. Late meetings that ran longer than expected. Weekend work trips that Julian insisted she'd skip. Cassidy's nervous laughter when they discussed Julian over lunch. How could she have been so blind? She heard footsteps on the stairs. Julian was coming down, probably whistling that off-key tune he always sang in the shower. Panic rose in her throat. Part of her wanted to scream, to throw her phone at him, to watch his perfect composure shatter like dropped glass. But another part, a deeper, colder part, told her to wait. Daniela locked her phone and placed it face down on the counter. She forced her breathing to slow, her hands to stop shaking. When Julian entered the kitchen moments later, she turned to him with a smile that felt like wearing a mask made of ice. "The performance begins. Happy anniversary." "My love," Julian said, pulling her into an embrace. He smelled of expensive cologne and mint toothpaste. His kiss on her forehead felt like a betrayal in itself. "Happy anniversary," Daniela replied, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her chest. "I made your favorite breakfast." Julian grinned, that charming smile that had first captured her heart 7 years ago at a charity auction. He was handsome in that effortless way. Dark hair slightly tousled, blue eyes bright with confidence. He wore success like a comfortable suit, never doubting his place in the world. "You spoil me," he said, reaching for a pastry. "I have something special planned for tonight. Dinner at Canlis, just the 2 of us." Daniela nodded, pouring coffee into his favorite mug. "That sounds perfect." She watched him eat, watched him scroll through his phone, probably texting Cassidy while sitting across from his wife. Every gesture felt calculated now, every word a potential lie. But she kept her face neutral, her demeanor loving and supportive. "Big day ahead?" she asked, her tone light and conversational. "Always," Julian said with a laugh. Closing on that waterfront property finally should be wrapped up by evening. Meeting her eyes. You know I love you, right? These 5 years have been the best of my life. The words should have warmed her heart. Instead, they felt like acid. I love you too, Daniela said, and the lie tasted bitter on her tongue. The weight of knowledge after Julian left for his office downtown, Daniela stood alone in the kitchen. The apartment felt too large, too quiet, filled with the ghost of the life she thought she had. She picked up her phone again, scrolling through the evidence with numb fingers. Each image, each text message, was another knife wound to her heart. Cassidy had been her friend for 8 years. They had met at a design conference in Portland, bonding over shared ambitions and late-night wine. When Daniela decided to start her own firm, Cassidy had been her first call. They built their business together, celebrating victories and weathering setbacks side by side. Cassidy had stood beside her at her wedding, had held her hand through her mother's funeral, had been the sister she never had. And now this Daniela walked to the window, pressing her forehead against the cool glass. Below, the city moved with its usual rhythm. Cars wound through streets like blood through veins. People hurried along sidewalks, each carrying their own secrets and sorrows. None of them knew that her world had just collapsed. None of them could see the woman behind the glass breaking into 1,000 pieces. But she would not break. Not yet. A plan takes shape. Daniela made herself another cup of coffee, her hands steadier now. She sat at the kitchen table, opening her laptop. She needed information. She needed to understand the full scope of what she was dealing with. She opened her banking app first, scanning through joint accounts and credit card statements. Nothing seemed unusual at first glance, but she would need to look deeper. Then she pulled up Julian's company website, studying his business partners, his recent deals, his public appearances. Everything looked legitimate, polished, successful. But appearances, she now knew, would be deceiving. She thought about confronting them immediately, imagined walking into Cassidy's office and throwing the evidence in her face. Pictured the scene at dinner tonight, where she could calmly lay her phone on the table between the wine glasses and watch Julian's mask crack. But what would that accomplish? A moment of satisfaction followed by chaos and pain. Lawyers and divorce proceedings and public humiliation. Julian's family had money and connections. Cassidy could claim it was nothing serious, just a mistake. Daniela would be left picking up the pieces of her shattered life while they moved on. No, she needed something more. She needed control. The decision, Daniela closed her laptop and picked up her phone. She scrolled through her contacts until she found the name she was looking for. Patricia Hoffman. They had met 2 years ago when Patricia hired Daniela to redesign her law office. Patricia specialized in family law and asset protection. With a reputation for being brilliant and discreet, she typed out a message. Patricia, I need your advice on a sensitive legal matter. Can we meet soon? Completely confidential. Response came within minutes, of course. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., my office. Whatever you need. Daniela set down her phone, feeling the first stirring of something beyond shock and grief. It was determination, cold and clear as winter ice. Julian and Cassidy thought they were safe, protected by her love and trust. They had underestimated her, mistaken kindness for weakness. They would learn their mistakes soon enough. For now, she would smile. She would dress beautifully for their anniversary dinner. She would look into Julian's eyes and say all the right words. She would hug Cassidy at their next meeting and laugh at her jokes. She would play the role of the perfect, devoted wife and loyal friend. And while they relaxed into their deception, as comfortable in their lies, she would be building something they could never anticipate. Not revenge, exactly. Something more precise than that, justice. Truth. Freedom. Daniela stood and walked to her closet, selecting the perfect dress for tonight's dinner. Deep blue silk that Julian had always loved. She would wear the diamond earrings he gave her for their 3rd anniversary. She would be radiant and loving in everything he expected. The performance had begun, and she intended to give the greatest performance of her life. Morning light streamed through the windows of Patricia Hoffman's law office, illuminating shelves lined with leather-bound legal volumes. Daniela sat across from Patricia, her hands folded in her lap, projecting a calm she didn't entirely feel. She had barely slept, her mind replaying every moment of the previous night's anniversary dinner. Julian had been charming, attentive, perfect. He had held her hand across the candlelit table, spoken about their future with such conviction that she almost believed him, almost forgot the photographs burning in her phone, almost convinced herself it was all a terrible mistake. But it wasn't. The evidence was real. The betrayal was real. "Tell me everything," Patricia said, her voice gentle but professional. She was in her mid-40s, with sharp gray eyes that missed nothing and silver-streaked hair pulled into a neat bun. Daniela took a deep breath and began. She showed Patricia the messages, the photographs, the timeline of lies. With each piece of evidence, she felt herself becoming more detached, as if she were narrating someone else's tragedy rather than her own. Patricia listened without interruption, occasionally making notes on her yellow legal pad. When Daniela finished, the attorney leaned back in her chair, her expression thoughtful. "This is difficult, I know," Patricia said, "but you've come to the right place. Before we discuss your options, I need to ask, what do you want from this situation?" Daniela had been asking herself the same question all night. "I want the truth. All of it. I want to know how deep this goes. And I want to protect myself, my business, everything I've built." The smart Patricia nodded. "We need to move carefully. Washington is a community property state, which means any assets acquired during your marriage are jointly owned. But if Julian has been hiding money or engaging in financial misconduct, that changes everything." Following the money trail, Patricia introduced Daniela to Thomas Brennan, a financial investigator who specialized in uncovering hidden assets and fraudulent transactions. Thomas was a quiet man in his 50s, with careful eyes and a methodical manner that immediately put Daniela at ease. "Most people focus on the emotional betrayal," Thomas explained during their first meeting in a discreet downtown cafe. "But infidelity often runs parallel to financial deception. If your husband is hiding a relationship, there's a good chance he's hiding money too." Over the next 3 weeks, Daniela lived a double life. By day, she was the devoted wife. She attended Julian's business dinners, smiled for photographs at charity events, and maintained her role as the perfect partner. She met with Cassidy to discuss design projects, reviewing fabric samples and floor plans, all while her former friend remained blissfully unaware that her betrayal had been discovered. By night, Daniela worked. She gathered bank statements, credit card bills, and tax documents. She photographed receipts Julian left in his pockets, noted the times he claimed to be working late, and tracked his movements through shared location apps he had forgotten were active. Thomas worked his magic with the information she provided. Within 2 weeks, he had uncovered a network of suspicious transactions, money flowing from Julian's company into accounts Daniela had never known existed, property purchases made under shell corporations, investment partnerships with questionable business associates. The emotional toll the strain began to show in small ways. Daniela found herself staring at her reflection in mirrors, barely recognizing the woman looking back. Dark circles shadowed her eyes despite expensive concealer. Her hands shook when she thought no one was watching. She lost weight, her clothes hanging looser on her frame. One evening, as she prepared dinner, Julian came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "You seem tired lately," he murmured against her hair. "Everything okay?" The concern in his voice was so perfectly manufactured, so completely false that Daniela wanted to scream. Instead, she leaned back against him, playing her part. "Just working hard on the Morrison project," she lied smoothly. "You know how demanding clients can be?" "Take a break," Julian suggested. "Maybe we should go away for a weekend. Just the two of us." Daniela turned in his arms, studying his face. How did he do it? How did he lie so effortlessly, so completely? "That sounds wonderful," she said, kissing his cheek. "Let me check my schedule." After he left the room, she gripped the counter's edge, forcing herself to breathe. The woman she had been, the one who believed in love and loyalty and forever, felt like a ghost haunting her own life. In her place was someone harder, colder, more calculating. She wasn't sure she liked who she was becoming. But she couldn't stop now. The confrontation with Cassidy 3 weeks into her investigation. Daniela arranged a meeting with Cassidy at their office. It was after hours, the building quiet except for the hum of heating vents and distant traffic. Cassidy arrived wearing a nervous smile, clutching a portfolio of new design concepts. "Thanks for meeting so late," Cassidy said, settling into a chair across from Daniela's desk. "I wanted to go over the Henderson proposal before the presentation tomorrow." Daniela studied her former friend. Cassidy was beautiful in an understated way, with honey blonde hair and warm brown eyes. She had always been the more outgoing of the two, the one who charmed clients and closed deals with easy confidence. Looking at her now, Daniela wondered how she had missed the signs. The guilt that occasionally flickered across Cassidy's face, the way she avoided direct eye contact when Julian's name came up. "Actually," Daniela said quietly, "I wanted to talk about something else." Cassidy's smile faltered. "Oh." Daniela placed her phone on the desk between them, the screen displaying one of the hotel corridor photographs. She watched the color drain from Cassidy's face, watched her mouth open and close without sound. "I know," Daniela said simply. "I've known for weeks." Cassidy's hands began to tremble. "Daniela, It's not what you think. ... Don't." Daniela's voice was cold, sharper than she intended. "Don't insult me with lies. I have 6 months of evidence, text messages, hotel receipts, everything." Tears filled Cassidy's eyes. "I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. It just... We didn't plan it. ... How long?" Daniela asked, even though she already knew the answer. 8 months, Cassidy whispered. "It started at the Vancouver conference. We were both drinking, and it just happened, and then we couldn't stop. I wanted to tell you so many times, but you didn't," Daniela finished. "You kept lying. You stood beside me at company events. You came to our home for dinner. You looked me in the eye and pretended to be my friend." "I am your friend," Cassidy said desperately. "What Julian and I have, it's not about hurting you. We connected in a way neither of us expected." Daniela felt something inside her crack. "You were my sister," she said, her voice breaking despite her efforts to stay composed. "I trusted you with everything. My business, my dreams, my secrets, and you repaid that by sleeping with my husband." Cassidy reached across the desk, but Daniela pulled away. "What are you going to do?" Cassidy asked, fear creeping into her voice. "I haven't decided yet," Daniela said, gathering her phone. "But I want you out of this company. You have 1 week to remove your name from the partnership and transfer your shares to me. Patricia Hoffman will handle the paperwork." "Daniela, please. This business is everything to me." "It was everything to me too," Daniela interrupted. "Until you destroyed it. 1 week, Cassidy, or I go public with everything and we both lose." She left Cassidy sitting in the office, tears streaming down her face. Daniela walked through the empty building on unsteady legs, not allowing herself to brake until she reached her car. Then, parked in the dark garage, she finally let the tears come. Great wrenching sobs that tore through her chest, releasing weeks of pent-up grief and rage. The final piece that night, Thomas called with news. "I found something big," he said, his voice tight with excitement. "Julian has been siphoning money from his company for over 2 years. Nearly $3 million hidden in offshore accounts. His business partners have no idea." Daniela felt the final piece of the puzzle click into place. This wasn't just about infidelity anymore. This was fraud, embezzlement, criminal activity that could send Julian to prison. "Can you prove it?" she asked. "Absolutely. I have bank records, transfer documents, everything. This is enough to file criminal charges if you want to go that route." Daniela sat in her darkened living room, the city lights twinkling outside her windows. Julian would be home soon, probably with flowers and apologies for working late. He would kiss her, tell her he loved her, and never suspect that his entire world was about to crumble. She thought about the woman she used to be, the one who believed in giving people second chances and finding forgiveness. But that woman had been naive, trusting, easily manipulated. The woman she was becoming understood that some betrayals were too deep for forgiveness, some wounds too severe for healing. "Prepare everything," she told Thomas. "I want copies of all the evidence. And call Patricia. Tell her it's time to move forward." When Julian arrived home an hour later, Daniela greeted him with a smile and accepted his kiss. She listened to his lies about the long meeting, nodded sympathetically, and suggested they order takeout and watch a movie as they sat on the couch together. His arm around her shoulders, she felt strangely calm. The storm was coming, but she was ready for it. She had gathered her evidence, protected her assets, and prepared for battle. Tomorrow, she would file for divorce. She would present the evidence of his affair and his financial crimes to the authorities. She would watch his perfect facade crumble, his reputation destroyed by the very lies he had worked so hard to maintain. But tonight, she would let him believe everything was fine. Let him think he had gotten away with it. Let him sleep peacefully one last time before his world exploded. Because tomorrow, the truth would finally come to light. And Daniela Reed would begin the long journey of reclaiming her life. Dawn broke over Seattle with unusual clarity, the sky painted in shades of rose and gold. Daniela stood at her bedroom window, already dressed in a charcoal suit that spoke of power and purpose. She had barely slept, but adrenaline coursed through her veins, sharpening her senses and steadying her resolve. Behind her, Julian still slept, his breathing deep and regular. She watched his reflection in the window glass. This man who had shared her bed and her life while systematically betraying everything they had built together. Part of her wanted to wake him, to see his face when she told him she knew everything. But Patricia had been clear. Let the legal system deliver the first blow. Daniela picked up her phone and sent a single text to Patricia. "I'm ready. Do it." The response came immediately. "Papers will be served at his office at 9. The authorities have been notified about the financial irregularities." It's done. She grabbed her bag, took one last look at the apartment she had decorated with such care and love, and walked out the door. She didn't look back. The fallout begins by 10 o'clock that morning. Daniela sat in Patricia's office, watching her old life disintegrate in real time. Her phone buzzed constantly with calls from Julian, from his attorney, from mutual friends who had heard the news. Through the city's well-connected social network, she ignored them all. Patricia briefed her on the morning's events with professional efficiency. Julian was served divorce papers at 9:15. The fraud investigation was initiated simultaneously. His business partners were informed about the missing funds and have frozen his access to company accounts. Cassidy formally withdrew from your company partnership, effective immediately. How did he react? Daniela asked, surprising herself with her own curiosity. According to the process server, he was shocked, angry. He tried calling you repeatedly before his attorney arrived. Patricia paused, studying Daniela's face. "Are you sure you don't want to speak with him? What could he possibly say?" Daniela replied, "More lies? More manipulation? I'm done listening." Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Julian. "Please, Donnie, let me explain. This is all a misunderstanding. I love you. Don't throw away everything we have." Daniela read the words, felt nothing, and deleted the message. Facing the truth, the next few days passed in a blur of legal meetings, document signings, and strategic planning. Daniela moved out of the apartment and into a hotel suite overlooking Elliott Bay. The space was impersonal but clean. A blank canvas where she could begin rebuilding her identity. News of Julian's fraud spread quickly through Seattle's business community. His company initiated an internal investigation. Several of his associates distanced themselves publicly, protecting their own reputations. The waterfront property deal he had been so proud of collapsed when investors learned about the criminal investigation. Cassidy called multiple times, her voicemails growing increasingly desperate. "Please, Daniela. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but at least let me explain. I made terrible choices. I hurt you in unforgivable ways. But I'm begging you to give me a chance to apologize in person." Daniela listened to the messages once, then blocked Cassidy's number. Some bridges once burned should never be rebuilt. On the 5th day, Patricia called with an update. Julian wants to meet. He's agreed to mediation, and his attorney suggests a settlement that would give you full ownership of your business, the apartment, and a significant financial package. What does he want in return? Daniela asked. For you to not testify about the financial irregularities you discovered. He's hoping to negotiate a plea deal with prosecutors. But your testimony could significantly impact the outcome. Daniela stood at her hotel window, watching ferries cross the gray-green waters of Puget Sound. Tell him I'll consider the settlement. But I won't promise anything about testimony. If prosecutors need me, I'll tell them everything I know. It's going to make him very angry, Patricia warned. Good, Daniela said quietly. Let him feel what anger is like. Let him understand what it's like when someone you trust destroys your world. The meeting 2 weeks after the initial filing, Daniela agreed to meet Julian in Patricia's conference room. It was the first time she had seen him since walking out of their apartment. He looked diminished somehow, his expensive suit unable to hide the weight loss and dark circles shadowing his eyes. Donnie, he began, his voice rough. Thank you for agreeing to see me, she sat across from him, Patricia beside her, his attorney flanking him. Don't call me that, she said calmly. That name belongs to someone who no longer exists. Oh. Julian flinched. I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But please, let me explain. ... Explain what? Daniela interrupted. Explain how you slept with my best friend for 8 months while telling me you loved me. Explain how you stole $3 million from your own company. Explain which part, Julian. The affair was a mistake, he said desperately. A terrible, stupid mistake. Cassidy and we got caught up in something neither of us understood, but it meant nothing compared to what you and I have. Daniela laughed, a sound without humor. Had Julian. Past tense. We had something. Until you destroyed it. The business with the money, he continued, it's complicated. I was making investments, trying to grow the company. You were stealing, Daniela said flatly. Hiding assets, creating false accounts, defrauding your partners. Don't dress it up as something noble. Julian's attorney cleared his throat. Mrs. Reed, my client is prepared to offer you a very generous settlement. Full ownership of your design business, the apartment, and $2 million. In exchange, we ask only that you refrain from public statements about the allegations. Patricia pulled out a folder, sliding it across the polished table. My client has prepared a counteroffer. She accepts the business and the apartment, but she wants $4 million, not 2. And she makes no promises about testimony or public statements. That's outrageous, Julian's attorney protested. Is it? Daniela leaned forward. I could go public with everything. The affair, the fraud, the lies. I could destroy what's left of your reputation completely, Julian. Instead, I'm offering you a chance to salvage something. Take the deal, or I tell the world exactly who you are. Julian's face had gone pale. You would do that? After everything we meant to each other. You did this, Daniela said, her voice steady. You made choices repeatedly that destroyed our marriage. You lied to me every single day. You looked me in the eyes and told me you loved me while you were sleeping with my best friend and stealing from your company. Don't you dare try to make me feel guilty for refusing to protect you from the consequences. Silence filled the conference room. Julian stared at his hands, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Finally, he nodded. Fine, I'll agree to your terms. Rebuilding 6 months later, Daniela stood in the newly renovated offices of Reed Design Studios. She had removed Cassidy's name from everything, rebuilt the team with talented designers who shared her vision, and secured several high-profile clients who appreciated her reputation for integrity. The divorce was finalized. Julian had taken a plea deal on the fraud charges, receiving probation and community service in exchange for repaying the stolen funds. His business career was effectively over, his reputation in ruins. Cassidy had left Seattle, moving to Portland to start over, where no one knew her story. Daniela had emerged from the wreckage with her business intact, her finances secured, and her self-respect restored. But the victory felt hollow sometimes, especially in the quiet moments when she allowed herself to remember the woman she used to be. Patricia stopped by the office one afternoon, bringing coffee and congratulations. "You did it," the attorney said, raising her cup in a toast. "You protected yourself and came out stronger." "Did I?" Daniela asked, gazing out at the city she loved. "Sometimes I feel like I lost something important in all of this. Not Julian, not the marriage. Something inside myself." "Your innocence," Patricia said gently. "Your ability to trust blindly. But you gained wisdom, strength, and the knowledge that you can survive betrayal and come out the other side." Daniela nodded slowly. "I suppose that's worth something." "It's worth everything," Patricia assured her. "You're not the woman you were before. You're better, stronger, more complete." That evening, Daniela walked along the waterfront, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. She thought about the journey she had traveled. From the morning she discovered Julian's betrayal to this moment of hard-won peace, she would never be naive again. She would never trust without question or love without boundaries. The betrayal had changed her fundamentally, carving away softness and leaving something harder, more resilient in its place, but she had survived. More than that, she had taken control of her own narrative, refused to be a victim, built something new from the ruins of her old life. As the last light faded from the sky, Daniela smiled. It was a small smile, tentative and genuine, the first real one in months. Tomorrow, she would wake up in her new apartment, go to her thriving business, and continue building the life she deserved. A life based on truth rather than illusion, on strength rather than innocence. The story of who she had been was finished. The story of who she would become was just beginning.